Hello, this is the briefing room. I am so fortunate to be here with Erin Kuiper today. Hi, Erin.
Hey, Chief. Great
I
to see
mean,
you.
it's only our second time trying to do this,
Yeah.
No fires today, right?
No fires today. Unfortunately, there was one last week, and so I did have to reschedule, but I'm here today, and I'm ready to get this rolling. I'm
Well, this is
excited.
good because the briefing room we kind of like talk about leadership. So we're gonna put out all the leadership fires today.
There we go.
That
I
people
like
have.
it. We'll keep the analogy rolling.
Yeah. So like we haven't had a lot of guests, and we were talking about different guests, and I don't know, like it's pretty cool. Like I think about history and culture a lot in leadership, and I think who better to have than royalty and Buckeye
Oh,
as one of our
gosh.
first people to talk to. Can you talk like maybe before we get into like some questions, like talk about what it's like to be like homegrown,
Yeah.
successful, like an amazing family. Just talk about that kind of culture history a little bit.
Well, first of all, that's really sweet. So thank you. You
Yeah.
gave me a lot of props there, which I can't take too much credit for because you nailed it. It's the family thing. So, yeah, born and raised out here in Buckeye, Arizona. Back when Buckeye was, the joke, you're halfway to, or in California,
Yep.
like the far, far West Valley, which we were. I mean, we were really
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, I remember it growing up a mainly farming community. And so I grew up on my family dairy farm. My dad was a third generation dairy farmer, and then my brother ended up being fourth generation. So the Kerrs have been milking since the 1920s, over 100 years. And it was just an amazing childhood experience.
Wow.
So great. Small town, everybody, knows everybody. Back when Buckeye was, 2 stoplights and, 5,000 people, I think. And it was just really, really great. So just love that. And, you mentioned family, and really what I think has just been phenomenal is to, just have that family. We grew up next to my grandparents, actually both sets of grandparents, because my mom moved out to Buckeye when she was 3, and her parents stayed in Buckeye until they both passed on. So
Wow.
had a lot of family nearby, and you joke about royalty, and it is a joke. It's not royalty, but
Well,
we've been here for a while.
Yeah, you've been here a while, but I mean, like, talk about how awesome it is to be somewhere and to just see it grow. Like you think in like business, like, or whatever you're in, you want to see success, or you want to see what but you like actually like you guys built the ground this community's built on.
That is a really neat point and a great perspective, because I feel like I've been able to be a part of kind of multiple growths. One being, of course, Buckeye as a town, now city. But also I would say agriculture as an industry, where ag has come from just, the 90s when I was growing up in it to where it is today. That's pretty phenomenal. But then also our local church has been able to grow, and I've been a part of that ever since it actually started in my grandparents' garage. And now we've got a church on Miller, and my kids go to school there. It's an academy as well. So there's several aspects. But I think what's really cool is that from my perspective, I feel like I really see, God's hand in working things, whether that's, the successful town, successful industry, but also, the church and the school as well. And it has been incredible. People my whole life have talked about, one day Buckeye's going to be, and you kind of just shrug it off until all of a sudden it not only is it here, but it's continuing, to grow, and the trajectory is seemingly endless, which is just mind blowing. And I feel like you never really are prepared for it.
Yeah.
And then here it is. But I also want to give props to Buckeye leadership. I feel like we've done a great job as a city to really, grow, in strides and numbers that many people don't understand or can even fathom. But yet we've still, and from my opinion, have been able to keep our small town feel. I feel like we do a great job of attracting families that want that white picket fence, the Main Street type of feel. And I feel like we have that in multiple areas in Buckeye, whether you're looking at, old downtown Main Street, or you're looking at Verrado or Sundance, and some of the new, developments coming in like Terravalis, which is mind-boggling.
That just moved in, their first
Yep,
residence,
first
300.
resident.
Do you think about that? Like you're the first resident, and 300,000 later, Like,
Can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot. And so I think we're grateful to be a part of, a state that is over 100 years old, right? A town that's older than the state is, and we're still growing. There's something really cool about that.
Yeah. Like, it's almost like, pull the thread on like, what is faith? Like the belief in the impossible, right? Like, like if it's gotta be faith, cause it never could come true without like God's hand. Right. And so to think about that, it's pretty cool. Like, my wife is from Blythe. So I guess she's the only person in Buckeye from a smaller town than Buckeye.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So at least I have that. But
that's funny.
It's I think it's so cool. Like, and I think maybe a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background, like
Sure.
because I know that it's an interesting background, but then also like I kind of want to pull a thread also on leadership and like your background of like being an athlete.
Sure.
So like, tell us a little bit about you.
You got it. So I already mentioned the agriculture stuff. So I grew up on a dairy farm, but from as long as I can remember, I fell in love with the game of basketball. I loved basketball. And gosh, I think it was probably by second grade, I had already made my mind up that I didn't care where it was, but I was going to play college basketball. Like I just, once I found out like you can play beyond high school, you can go to school, I was like, oh, I'm in. And so that was my goal. And so from very early on, that's just what I worked towards. And yeah, not only do I just love the game, but I think there's so much about, not just basketball, but all sports that, you gain this leadership aspect, that, if you want to succeed, right? I mean, there's plenty of ways you can go about sports and not become a leader and not, take that avenue. But thankfully I was just really set on it. And, so no, I give the game so much credit for what it's taught me in leadership, being a part of a team. The whole team mentality has served me well in just about every aspect of my life when it comes to, just in a workplace environment, but also as a mom, as a wife, and a small business owner. Like there's just so much that, sports has taught me. But thankfully, I was able to, get pretty good at the game. I was very committed to it and had an amazing high school experience here at Buckeye, go Hawks, and was able to get a scholarship and fulfill my dream and played Division II basketball at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, go Skyhawks, and had an incredible experience there. And, some of my teammates are still some of my great friends today. I still have a great relationship with my coach, who is now at West Virginia and is the head coach there for the Mountaineers, which now we're big Mountaineer fans in our family, and they're doing great. They're having an awesome season. But yeah, no, it was really great. I think what, not just the training and, the amount of effort it takes to get good at a sport, but also to have goals and, to be able to reach it and stay focused on those. And of course there's adversity. I had, many injuries and crazy things happen, but, just sticking with it and seeing it through and was one of the best experiences in my life so far.
I love the sports. Like it's funny, like what sports can do for leadership. Like there's so many people that I talk to, or I'm trying to help with leadership, and they've never played sports. They don't know all the life lessons in sports. And it's funny. You can just tell, like, their sports bring so much. Like, I was never an athlete. At least I act like it now, but I was never an athlete. But my dad would always like instill, my dad was a farmer, he's a pig farmer. By the way, like, my dad would go around these farms nowadays and he's amazed. Like if he was still on this earth, like he would want to like stop at every farm and like, what's that tractor? Why do they have that computer? What are they doing with this? Like he would lose his mind. Like I still remember driving by places and he'd want to like go talk to the farmer because he's like, I want to know what they're doing. I'm like, why? You don't farm anymore. But it was in his roots. But there's something about farming and effort and like, getting up every morning at 4:30 to go start whatever operation you got to do. And, always taking care of the animals, or always there's always somebody you have to go take care of, or something you have to take care of, whether it's the ground or the earth or what's on top of it. And I think it's sports, it's the same thing. Like you transition that to like effort, my dad always instilled, you got to play hard. There's one thing you control, it's your effort. You can't control your talent. God, I wish it was just 3 inches taller. But like you can't control like, the environment you're in. You can't control who you play. You can't control if you get the ball, but you can control your effort. And so like it's so many little things that if you could teach somebody, like if my kids play sports just because I don't care that they're good, I want them to learn like life. But I think it's interesting farming, sports and at what they teach you as you go through. So now let's see, transition professionally. Where are you at? Because I know there's some big news coming up too, right?
There's some big news coming up. Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Thanks for asking. So yeah, I'm in line right now to take over at the Buckeye Valley Chamber of Commerce, which I'm just incredibly excited for. Just something really that's never was on my radar. Chamber work. I knew what the chamber was. I know, it's been there forever. They do great things for the community. But yeah, I was approached by the current CEO and president, Deanna Kupsik, who's been there for, it'll be 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, or 39 actually when she retires. And so she was wanting to put together a succession plan, and I was available, and she approached me, and my heart immediately was like, yes, but let me go home and talk to my husband. But anyways, of course, when I talked to my husband, Brad, he's like, this is amazing.
Yep.
And so I'm really excited, just the chance to promote not just the city and the people I love, but the businesses, and we're just primed to take off, and I'm really excited to step into that role. It'll be about 14 months or so, but in the meantime, we're working together in tandem, and Deanna's been incredible. I've been learning and building relationships and kind of getting things rolling in the meantime, and it's just been fantastic. Yeah,
they couldn't hire a better person, but I think what you said earlier too, we talk about, in the military at Luke Air Force Base, we talked about like the managed growth. Like we want the community to succeed. I think something this community's done amazingly well that other military bases don't get it right is that they don't understand how they grow in tandem. And, it's interesting with Buckeye being its own chamber of commerce, and you talk about not losing that agriculture field. There's a lot of chambers, the Southwest Chamber, there's all these, but they still work together. So, what have you learned as you've gone in the role, like how important it is to work with the other chambers? Glendale has their own chamber of commerce, but that we all work together. Yep. We have to. So
absolutely. No, it's huge. Yeah. So we have actually on the west side, the West Valley Region Chamber Alliance. I maybe got that wrong, but and where all those chambers that you mentioned and more are part of it. And it's just critical, as Arizona, you look at it as the state, we have these, separate regions. And so the relationship that we have here on the west side is just critical for, getting, bills passed and getting things, set up and lined to really place our businesses in line for success. And so, yeah, you're right. You nailed it. We have great relationships with all the chambers out here. And, I say West Valley, but really it's statewide. I was able to attend the Arizona Chamber Executive Conference in September, and that was amazing. Like I was excited for my job before, but then going to that conference and getting to meet all the other chamber execs across Arizona, it's just amazing. I love Buckeye, of course, but I love our state too. And just really getting more involved in that business community is just so exciting for what our state is really set up for and primed for. And it's all about the relationships. And thankfully we work together. And of course, there's many businesses that have multiple businesses, right, around all the different areas. And so we share membership, even board members at times. And it's just really neat to have those strong relationships that, again, just only set up our businesses for success as we help and lift up each other in the West Valley.
So you hit something too, like you talk about all these chambers. It's the West Side, but they all have they're worried about their city, and they're worried about what they need, and they have different issues. And I'm not going to bring up water right now, but
right now,
but again, go back to your background. Like you have a dad that's been very successful. Like you just talked, your brother took fourth generation dairy, but you have a pretty successful mom too. And she's probably taught you a little bit about success.
Just a little bit.
Trying to help all these different things. So what about that?
Yeah. So my mom was a state senator for 7 years. She was appointed I'm probably going to get all the dates wrong. I believe it was 2017, but then was reelected for 2 other additional terms. And you want to talk about leadership. I feel like I was so blessed in my life that some of the most inspirational people that I have ever dealt with have been some of my family members, which is pretty incredible, because you get to not only see them, in the marketplace and doing their business, but then you see the real rawness at home too. And so I think when someone is able to live their life with integrity through and through, regardless of what situation they're in. That just is an incredible role model for me. And so, yeah, I say all of that to say that both my parents, my mom and my dad, but also my grandparents, were incredible role models for me. And yeah, being a senator, and my mom will tell you this, just was never a part of her plan. Like that wasn't even on the radar. And but she started getting really involved with the Arizona Farm Bureau, and she became really involved with the women's leadership program. And through that leadership program, they just provide so many leadership training opportunities. There's a boot camp, it's called, where you go to DC and you do like all these, trainings on how to speak to your congresspeople and how to handle things on, Capitol Hill, and how to do a news interview. And it's just all of this stuff. And so, my mom will tell you that all of those things, she can look back now and she feels that God was really priming her for her time to step in to the legislature here in the Arizona Capitol. So, in 2017, she was appointed to be state senator, and served it. So it was halfway through that first session. And so she only served 7 years as opposed to the 8 that you could. But that through that whole experience, being able to, see my mom step into something that, probably terrified her. And she'll tell you, the first day, 2 weeks before the first day of session, she wasn't even a senator. Like she wasn't on the, the radar. And here she is going to opening day. So watching her navigate that was amazing. And, being her daughter and her cheerleader. I was her hype girl. I feel like she would call me before a big meeting. I'm like, you got this, Mom. Like, you stand your ground. And if you see my mom, she's this petite, 5 foot.
Nicest woman in the world.
She's so tiny. Her nickname for some of the senators is actually the Velvet Hammer, because she was so, kind and put together and sweet, but man, she would stand her ground and, really, really stood up for her constituents, which was, primarily Buckeye, Yuma. She had a huge district. But no, it was really, really inspiring to see her step into that. But then I think what I didn't see coming was that the leadership that she took on within the Senate. So by her last term, she was the majority whip in the Senate and, had a lot of, power, you might say, but watching her navigate those things, prayerfully and just real steadfast in her convictions and her integrity. I'm so proud that, she was able to serve that whole term and wasn't owned by anybody. She was able to stand her ground and didn't have to answer to anybody but herself and her constituents. And I thought that was pretty amazing. Cause as you can imagine, I got to see some behind the scenes stuff, which, a lot of it was great and really good. And then a lot of it was not. And so seeing her navigate that was really cool. Yeah,
that it's such a good perspective to be able to watch it too. So I think politics is important to our country. It's important, but it's so divisive. But where I mean, you see her being so successful and see what she did. What do you think about that? Because I know you helped with some bills. You definitely had. I mean, you've talked not the water bill, but I know you helped with one. Where did you get a little piece of the pie? And you're like, oh man, funny. I might want some more of this.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I've learned to never say never. I'll just say that.
That's a good perspective.
Also, I mean, it is right. Just never say never. Yeah. But I will say I have seen the importance of public service for sure. And I'd never had been exposed to it in that way before, but now that I have, it's you can't unsee what you've seen. Yeah. And so, I've prayed about it that, if God would ever use me in that way, that, he would make it clear the time and opportunity and, what that would look like. I'll never say never, but did I learn the importance of serving in that manner as a, public servant and, to the Capitol or whichever way that could look like, I definitely have. And I will say this too, I come from a long line of military, proud military family. I never served in that way, and I've kind of always regretted it. And so a part of me is kind of like, this could be my way to serve the public, even though it's not, I'm not trying to compare, that type of service, but that has, come to mind that, this could be a way to serve. Cause I wish I would have served in the military.
I get, you know what? I like you, but I do think it's so crazy. Like I remember growing up in like Peace Corps or this or that, like service. It was just we taught like service was important, and there's multiple ways to serve, and I don't know where we've transitioned or why people think the only way to serve is the military. And there's so many like city politics or city government, and there's so many ways you can serve. And I feel like for people sometimes now, like you think of like companies, and you're bringing these companies in, or you're talking to all these companies, and how can you tell which ones like service is important to them? Like, like that, because I think when you look at Buckeye, this is a community that is so invested in like where they're growing, that it's definitely like, it's not like we don't want to lose the agriculture. We don't want to lose the farming, the heart of what Buckeye is, but you also have to grow. So when you look at some of these companies, do you think like, man, that's a good little outlet to know what kind of person they are, what kind of company they are, service, or what does service mean to them,
Yeah. No, I think props to our economic development team. I mean, I know we know a few of them. Tennille, shout out. They've done a phenomenal job. They really have. And they understand the community, I think. And, no, nothing's ever perfect. And of course you're going to have someone that's always going to gripe about something, but I would say overall, like they've done a great job. And I think they really know how to package Buckeye, to attract those businesses and those ownerships, and to come that would not just, fill a need economically, but also community. They make a great point to talk about our history of our town, to talk about, the ag roots that we have here, but also the amazing, future that we have coming too. So I would say it's a both and, but yeah, I give major props to our economic development team. And, Susie Boyles is the director, and she's put together, they're growing as a team as well. But they put together a phenomenal team that really understands not just what our needs are, but what our wants are. And, just to be able to bring in those businesses that are community focused. Because I mean, like you said, you can tell, right? And so from my knowledge, I can't sit here and think of like, oh, this one company came to town and they didn't fit in. And I think that's props to our development team to come in and do that. But it's also our community. It's our residents that create that environment. And, you said it, I think in the question that, we don't want to see agriculture go away. And, that is a tricky balancing act for a massive growing city that is rooted in agriculture. And, for me personally, coming from an ag family, but then my husband and I own a real estate business as well. And so he does land brokerage. And so, I tell people this, that every time he gets a listing and it's a farm, like we pray that, it's another farmer that can come in and buy it and keep it in ag. But at the same time, we want what is best for our client. And sometimes those developers can just pay higher than, what a farmer could. And at the end of the day, we understand, being both my husband grew up on a dairy farm as well, understanding that when that farmer goes to sell his livelihood, you want him or her to get the best that they possibly can. Because most of the time that one sale is it, and it, needs to create that, retirement plan, generational wealth, hopefully. And so we see a bit of that, but I love that Mayor Osborne is always says, we want our farmers to keep farming as long as they want. Like they don't have any pressure. They don't feel any pressure to ever sell or, get out earlier than they feel ready for. And I really appreciate that, because I don't know any other mayor that would openly say that. Yeah. And, and as an ag, person from the industry, we feel that support from not just the mayor, but from council and everybody else in leadership.
He's definitely an amazing person. I hopefully he doesn't watch this and hear me say that, but I want to make sure that he remembers though that you were picked before him. All right. Okay. So when if he ever comes on the show, just know that you were you were before. Okay. So you'll have that over him, and we need to make sure he knows that. But awesome. No, I think you're right. It's so. But that's even another great point. Like, when you're setting up your team, like, not even the team, but like all the way down from the mayor to the deputy directors to the city managers, everybody seems like they're on the same page, and it does make a city grow better. It does help with everything. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit. You also, I think something as when we go through our journey of leadership, we deal with adversity, and you've dealt with that too. Yeah. So how have you dealt with the adversity that you've dealt with, or that has happened to you as you've gone through? Yeah.
So I mean, immediately I go to like my sports days and like the injuries that I've had. I've had some crazy injuries at some very critical times that you don't want to get injured. My freshman year in high school. Going into sophomore year, I fractured my L5 in my back. I know, playing a game, came down on a rebound hard. So
can you tell the funny story about this? Because
it's not funny. No, but there is one funny story
with your dad, right? Like I want to, because like didn't he yell at you in the game and I want to remember that.
I would love to share that story. Thank you, Jason, for bringing that up. So yes,
we know where she gets her toughness.
Yeah, exactly. So I loved because you touched on it talking about your dad, where it's like you can always give 100% effort, right? And my parents were so good at that. They never pushed me. They knew that I had a goal of playing college ball, but it was always up to me to go out there and practice. So that's what they expected, 100% effort. Well, we're in this game, during the summer, and I go up for this rebound and land on my feet. But the way I landed with my back, I could tell like, ooh, something popped, like something's not right. So then that night, I'm telling him, my back is achy, and I'll sleep on it. You'll be fine. And I had another game in the morning. So I go to the game in the morning and I was in so much pain. I mean, I could barely run. I didn't want to dribble. Like I was in so much pain. And, my dad's sitting there, she's not even trying. Look at her. She's not even giving her best effort. She doesn't want to shoot. She doesn't want to dribble. So the whole way home, he's, I can't believe, you didn't give your effort. You look like you quit out there. And I was like, Dad, I'm in a lot of pain. So my mom thankfully believed me, takes me to get an x-ray. Sure enough, I fractured the L5 in my lower back.
Gosh.
And so my mom calls it. My dad felt horrible. He never got on to me after a game. And that was the one time he did. I had a broken back.
Poor dad, man.
That was the funny story with that. But he'll never live that down. I always remind him, like, remember that one time?
I remember this story from a while back when you said it, and I'm like, oh, I gotta remember that. I'm just can't wait till I see him again and say that to him.
Yeah, so he's the guy that got onto his daughter with a broken back. Yeah, no, it's so funny.
But again, like how many people would go through that pain? Like you think about it, like something's wrong, but are you willing to accept this journey and go through the end? Like there's so many people that'll just quit. No, I'm hurt. I can't do this. Yeah. And you broke your back.
I broke my back. And I remember after, my dad found out that it was actually broken, he had a heart-to-heart conversation, was like, hey, you only get one back. Like, is this really worth it? And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to heal up. I'm going to get better and I'm going to keep playing. Like, I had this goal. But to your point, I think, I don't know if it was, growing up on the farm, the work ethic. I think it was mostly seeing, those role models like my grandpa and my grandma, my mom and dad just working hard. My grandmother, my mom's mom, she was born and raised in Mexico and was one of 12 siblings and grew up on a dirt floor. I mean, like the poorest of the poor. Yeah. And I watched her just live her life happy, funny, up for anything, didn't give up on, and so I think a lot of what I saw just really motivated me that I could do the same. And so, once I did heal and finally, got back to playing, it just was okay, stay focused, stay on the goal. But then, even in college, I had both of my knees done within like 8 months. And it was because it was just wear and tear. Like I just was playing so much. And so, once it got through that, recovered from the knee surgeries, then thankfully had a really great junior and senior year, and now, not in any pain, which is great. But again, I could have stopped.
Yep.
I could have given up there, but I don't know. The game just meant so much to me.
It's the pastor this week, our pastor at the church I go to, he talked about like how people need to stop thinking in days and think in decades. And, like even like with sports, but when you were talking earlier about like the community and the dairy and like agriculture and farming and all this stuff, like generational, like if they do sell a farm, it's generational wealth for their family, but I think something that's crazy is like, even Mayor Osborne, when you said the comment, he said like, people think so much in days sometimes. I think even like in Leadership West, when we did Leadership West together, you get people that talk about these issues, or you have people that talk in these like very small kind of things that people really need to look at when they look at leadership. It's a decade issue. Like, think long term. Don't let the little fires or the problems of adversity that hit you today, like, your back hurts, but you can repair it, hopefully.
Yeah.
If you
Thankfully,
if you get in a plane wreck, that could be really bad. But thankfully you're okay. But like the fact that you responded to your dad like, oh, I'm in pain, but I'm going to get better. Like, I'm not going to let this injury injure a life or a decade goal. Like, something I'm going to. So I don't know. I think people, like, sometimes you're going to get hit with obstacles. And how do you respond to it? Yeah. I think it's a great, admirable response. So like, what about like with, you think of like family and I think, I know personal story, like you guys have gone through. How have you guys dealt with that and rebounded?
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So gosh, it'll be 2 years ago now, 2.5, or it was 2 years in August. We unexpectedly lost my brother-in-law in an accident. Andrew, Kimberly was, in an accident. Yeah. Man, it's crazy to think that it was 2.5 years ago. He was 42, and he and my sister have 4 boys. They were still are young, but the oldest is about to turn 15, which is crazy. And I know we've spoken about personal tragedy and family tragedy, but it's gonna make me emotional. Again, the role models in my life, watching my sister go through that, it was pretty remarkable. Her faith was so strong, and still is. I think it's only gotten stronger. But, just seeing her faced with unimaginable situation and grief, and the way that she was able to handle it with so much grace was something that I'll always carry with me. And, watching her now a single mom, with 4 boys, incredible boys. She's a great mom. He was a great dad. Is just a testament to, I believe, or what I'm learning, I'm trying to get better at is, really rooting your faith, your life. I mean, putting everything in Christ and, really leaning back on that faith, because, I know it's cliche and, some of the sayings of, when you can't stand, kneel, or when things get too tough. And, but I've seen it firsthand live out that way. And, it's just made me want to be a better person, a better mom, better sister, better wife, better leader, better, business owner. When you see someone, go through something so hard and she's been able to get through it the way that she has, is nothing but inspirational and motivating and, inspiring. And so, and I know we have a similar story, and, watching you and your wife and your family has also been very inspiring. And, it's unfortunate. You don't wish this type of loss on anybody. But then in, a way that only God can, so much of his grace is also shown through tragedy and loss. And thankfully, I think we've been able to see that. Not saying that it's easy or that it's, has gotten any less hard. But yeah, just to be able to watch someone go through it, and I'm so proud of her, because not everybody chooses to get up and keep going, and you know, people wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but thankfully she's chosen to do that, and yeah, has just taken this chapter of life and this season of life with so much grace and just kindness, but really her faith and her strength has just been phenomenal to witness. Yeah.
I mean, one, thanks for sharing. I know it's so hard to talk about it, but I feel like, you know, sometimes people think like your life is perfect. They think like, oh, this person just was handed the silver platter and that everything's okay for them, and they don't realize like the struggles that go on behind the scenes that only their closest friends and family might know about. And I feel like not even like you have to explain it or you have to tell people, but it's who makes you. That's what makes you so strong. That's what makes you so vibrant. That's what makes you someone that can go lead an organization and do amazing things, because these all, like when the chaos happens, you're grounded in what's more important, you know, integrity, faith, family, you know, these things that keep you, I don't know, set in the right path. Without those things, they don't make you who you are. And it sucks that it happens. You know, God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, but man, he sure gives us a lot of crap sometimes, right? Sorry, Lord. But
that's true.
And I think the same thing happens in leadership. It happens, you know, we have these peaks and valleys in our organizations, you know, but I do feel like it's just tough. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. So where is Buckeye going? You know, like, I mean, you're going to be this, you know, big time Chamber of Commerce lead, and, you know, all of us little people in the world,
Whatever.
like where is this community going? Like, where would you've talked about it. Your family's been here over 100 years. I mean, we're about to have the 250th anniversary of America next year.
Yeah.
Like, the Kuipers have been here 100 years.
Well, no, I need to correct you on that. We have not been here 100 years. I've got to say. So
Buckeye
has. Yeah. No, my family, we came from Michigan. Is actually in the Great Depression.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my great grandpa.
So only 71 years.
I know, it hasn't been 100, but
yeah.
I mean, because we have had families that have been here.
Yeah.
I think of the Bales family that has their territory. They've got the paper from the Arizona Territory of the deed of their land
so cool.
from the 1880s.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. So I only correct you in honor and respect for them. But yeah, so my grandpa, Great Depression hits. They were in Michigan, Romeo, Michigan. It packs everything up, moves out to Tempe. And so my grandpa's first dairy, where my dad grew up, was on Kyrene and Mill Avenue in Tempe.
Wow.
And of course, we all know Tempe is what it is today. So as it was growing, my grandpa moved out to Buckeye, this small town in the middle of nowhere where, you know, urban sprawl would never hit them. And this was back in the 70s. Fast forward to today, of course. But so we've been here for a while. We've been milking. Our dairy's been farming, or our family's been farming for over 100 years. But the trajectory of Buckeye. So, I mean, let's start with just how big we are. A lot of people don't realize, you know, even when we say 639 square miles, people can't fathom that. They can't even picture it. So I like to point out that we could fit 13 other metro cities within our city limits.
Just crazy.
It's just insane. Terravalis, the community you mentioned earlier, just that development alone is 37,000 acres. And that's one development in the city of Buckeye.
And what's Verado, like 7,000? I mean, it's like it's eight
it
what
is.
is it? 4? I don't do math on
do
podcasts.
The math. Multiple Verados.
Man, just crazy.
No, it is. It's mind-boggling. And so when you look at the potential, it's so exciting, and it is, because I believe that, you know, both can coexist. Like we can still have our roots in our agriculture and maintain that identity as a town, while also being the future of the West, like leading the way when it comes to, you know, data centers or like these, you know, big developments coming, businesses. And it doesn't just have to be industrial. Like, I think, you know, what's on the map, but also what is being planned is so exciting for our residents. for me growing up, my nearest grocery store was 99th Avenue and Thomas, and we'd take all day to head out there, and my mom would have an ice chest in the back to put our cold goods in, So to think that we have a Costco.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what did your dad do the first time he walked into Costco? Like, man,
mind blown.
I would have loved to have been the fly on the wall to watch him walk in there.
Yeah, it's just, some of these amenities that we have now that I just never thought we would have. Here we have it. So I think it's great. I love that we're able to balance the both. I hope that we continue to do that. And I think with the current leadership, I think that's in the forefront. But really the future is, it's up to us, and it's exciting. We have zero limitations. We have water. Buckeye has water.
I said we weren't going to talk about it, but
I gotta say it.
Let's go. I love it.
I gotta say it. No, we have water. We've got the infrastructure. We have everything that we would need to really build the city in a way that we want to build it, and I think we are.
And I love it that you're like going to have a key piece of that. I think there is so many. You could go back in history, and look at companies that have lost their why. Like lost their why, forgot what their main, like, I think in any organization, when it comes down to it, whenever you feel like you're off center, you feel like something's going on, go back to what your why is. And you think of this community, like having so many people that are from here in key positions, they don't lose that why. Like what is important? What makes this city great? And then you can grow, you can get bigger, but don't lose that. The minute you lose that, you lose your identity, you lose what makes it great. You become just every other city. And I think that's important. So, let me ask, where are we at right now? 40? Man, we're doing good.
Wow.
That's good. I think maybe if there was one thing that you would look at, and as you've gone through your journey, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently?
Oh my gosh. I'm not one of those people that are like, no regrets. And, no, I would totally do things differently.
That's good, because I got asked this question. I'm like, never. I don't have. No,
like,
so you just changed it.
Sorry,
sorry.
Go. I'm not one of those people. No, I totally would do things differently. But I'm also the believer that, of course, God uses our past and things to get us to where we are. But man, when it comes to one, specific thing, I don't necessarily think. Nothing comes to mind as a specific thing, but I would say that, through the years, I think I have been really hard on myself, and, it served me well for a time, like it did with, sports, for example. It was good for me to challenge myself and to think about the plays and like, what could I have done better? And, kind of go through it that way. But if I could go back to my younger self, I think I would help her clearly define like what's a healthy way to critique, which would be like in sports and, maybe schoolwork, but then what's not, which would be, I would say that I'd struggled with probably perfectionism in my life. Now going back, it's like, man, realizing, and I still struggle with it. I don't want to act like I'm, beyond it, but just realizing that there are things that are just going to be out of your control. And, what you can control is you, your effort, like you mentioned earlier, integrity, just the things that you stand on, and that, you're just not going to please everybody. And that's a tough pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
But I know as long as I'm staying true to myself and, true to who I believe God has created me to be, then that's what matters at the end of the day. And so I just wish I would have had that understanding, but I'm sure that comes with years and living and, learning and all of that. But yeah, I think I've spent so much time worrying about things that are just so out of my control.
But when you were talking, I was trying to think of the quote. It's like, strive for perfection so you can reach excellence. Like something in there,
sure,
like you'll never reach perfection, but you can reach excellence. And and I think it's one of those things. Like, I think if you took like a study, and we're gonna have to do this case study for like, but if you asked all these leaders questions, the one thing they all have is they're never good enough. There always can be better. They always could do, improve one thing. Like I can get my free throw percentage 1% more, and that's 10 more free throws in a season. We only lost 3 games by 2 points. Like I think it's now but I think it is fascinating. You said the mental part of it though, right? Like what did that do to you that you were so hard on yourself? Like but I love that you didn't pick like an event. You picked something personal, like like how I could have done something better. I do feel though, it's, if you weren't like that, you wouldn't be where you are now, because so many people don't have that ability to, like, you know, I always want to learn. I want to grow. I want to get something from you that I learn from, that I can be better. I want to learn about my opponents because I want to beat them, you know, or I want to be better for my people and my organization. And if I don't grow, I'm not going to be good enough for them. Or, you know, if you're in ag and like you don't learn about the community, well, when it's right on your doorstep, you're going to be like, damn, I wish I learned about the community. You know, like how do you don't compete with your competition. So I feel like Buckeye's so lucky to have people like you in those positions to think about that, you know? So, but it is like, you're never going to be perfect, but you got to try.
Never going to be perfect. Got to try. Always do your best. Like none of that changes. But, you know, when you were talking, I remembered the quote that really set me in a path of healing from that perfectionism is that, understanding through my faith and, you know, what I believe, you know, God says about me is that my worthiness is never on the table. And so many times I would go into a conversation or even, you know, job interviews or like whatever, and almost willingly give that to them. And it's like, no, once you understand, you know, that your worthiness for me and my understanding of my faith is that it's in, you know, who God says I am, then nobody can touch that. And it's not in a sense of arrogance, but it's just in a sense of just understanding who you are in Christ. And for me, I constantly have to remind myself of that, because I will still, you know, I prepare, right? Like it's no longer basketball, but if I've got a meeting coming up, like, you know, studying the opponent and doing like, I still do that and I get prepared. But this time I'm walking in and it's from a place of, you know, preparedness and understanding. And then when you don't, you know, put your worthiness up for negotiation, it just changes everything, or it does for me. And so that was really freeing, just understanding that it's not on the table. And, you know, we can talk about all other things, but we're not going to talk about that.
You know, like we're never going to be God or Jesus, you know, you're never going to be perfect, but they're the only perfect person. So you don't have to be there, but man, you really want to try. Like you just want to be a good person. That, what is it? There's another quote. I think it's like Aristotle, like we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And so it's almost like, what are those traits that you do consistently over time that make you excellent, or make it about the habit, not the act. You know, like we're never going to be perfect, but God, we can have like excellent traits that over time can help us succeed and be better.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
So what, any parting shots? Briefing room. Like,
I know
we already know you're ahead of Mayor Osborne, so we haven't asked him yet, but
yes, I was here first.
You know, any parting shots as we talk, you know, really great perspective on life and leadership. Like, I love that we got to talk today, and, you know, like any final comments for you? I mean,
final comments for me. I love that we got to talk a lot about Buckeye today. Love my city. I would just say, look out for us. I mean, we're coming. I feel like, you know, people still kind of want to put us on the back burner, but we're here. We've got a lot of great things going. A lot of wonderful communities. If you're looking for a new home, check out Buckeye, because I think we'll be the greatest city. I think we're going to be the gem of not just the West Valley, but of Arizona. So I'm really excited. Oh,
I heard a quote. It was, or not it was I'm not going to say his name, but I was at an event last year, and it was Desert Diamond Arena, and he was talking about, you know, when that was built, like why would you buy an arena, or why would you build an arena that far out in the West Side? By 2035, so 8-9 years, you know, not that far, 9 years from now, there will be more people west of Desert Diamond Arena than east.
That is insane.
Like that. Think about that.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
That's like not even like Terravalis is like maybe an eighth of where it's going to be, you know? Right. So it is, I think things are going west, but I think what's crazy too is there's a lot of people that are moving here to live here, and they don't want to travel east for jobs. And so you're going to be a key proponent of that, like keeping people, keeping people here. So thank you for being on the briefing room.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah, it was great. Great discussion. Thanks for being an amazing person. And thanks for what you do for Buckeye and in this community. And thanks for what you do for leadership. We need leaders like you out there.
Hey, I'm doing my best.
All right. Well, another episode of the briefing room. Really looking forward to talking to more excellent leaders like this one right here. Thank you.